lovely friends, it's Margaret, and today we're going to be doing a spoilery chat for The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. Now, if you want my spoiler-free review, this is not the video for you. I will have that linked up top so that you can watch that one. However, this is where I'm just going to go over all of the things that made me squee in this book, that I loved about this book. I just have so many thoughts, and I cannot wait to share them with all of you. All right, so we're going to start out with the big thing that I really appreciated about this book, and it's the fact that everything is so much simpler than what people think it was. With Jude and her exile, her going, oh, it obviously can't be, like, I can't solve it because I'm the Queen of Fairy. That's not how that's gonna work. That's not how it's gonna change. She literally thinks about the fact that it is worded in a way that's like, oh, maybe I could pardon myself. And then she's like, oh, no, it can't be that simple. And then it is. Like, Cardan's like, you moron. That is exactly why I worded it that way. I loved the fact that they... I also love the fact that he is so twisted up about, like, this prophecy. And he's like, oh, I'm going to turn into this great, terrible, horrible person. Yada, yada, yada. If I get the crown. All of that. And then he's like, oh, wait. It's literal. Oh, what if it's a literal interpretation? What if it's a literal prophecy? I was like, oh. I love the fact that Holly Black really capitalizes on the tricky nature of the Fae and the fact that they will try and make things super complicated and then they end up being so much simpler than they are. Speaking of Cardan, I really appreciated the growth he shows with boundaries. I really liked the fact that we get him in the first time we see him in this novel, he's being flirtatious, he's being his old self, and he realizes that Jude is afraid of him. And so when we see him next, when we see how he's interacting with Jude next, he has given her, especially in the second half of the book, he gives her so much space. And I love that fact. I love the fact that he waits for Jude to come to him. He waits for Jude. He gives Jude the what's the word? He lets Jude set the tone of what their relationship is and what it means. Like, he still has to do that whole, like, front towards the fairy court, but I love how much, like, space he gives her and the fact that he doesn't try and push their relationship. He doesn't try and, you know, take advantage of it or force her to do anything that she does not want to do. I love that fact. I think that we have consistently seen Cardan be very respectful of the boundaries of the people he cares about. I think we've consistently seen him be very respectful about the fact that if somebody doesn't want to do something, he doesn't want to force them to do something. He doesn't like that. We saw it in Cruel Prince with pricking her finger and making her drink her blood because it had salt in it. We saw that when he was going to glamour her in The Wicked King and he, like, waited for her to say it was okay. And we see that in here where he waits for Jude to take the next step forward in their relationship and doesn't, like, he's, page 202, guys. Like, when he's like, I want to know what you want. Not what I want to know what you want. And, like, totally lets Jude set the pace and the tone of that entire scene. I love it. The fact that, like, they're making out and he's like, you know, he has the wherewithal while they're making out to realize that Jude is uncomfortable and he stops. I absolutely adored that. Like, oh my gosh, if every guy could show that level of awareness, do you know where we would be in the world today? We would be in a much better place. Also, I did not realize this until this book, but the real conflicts of this story are not actually Jude and Cardan. Cardan is kind of a red herring when it comes to the conflicts. It is actually Jude and Maddox, and Jude versus vulnerability. Like, the external plot is Jude versus Maddox, because it's been that, you would think he would know that it has been that way since his first appearance is him showing up to murder her parents. But, like, I love the fact that the climax is this kind of dual thing between her trying to get one up on Maddox and her trying not to be vulnerable, and she has to let go of both of those things to get what she really wants in the end, which is Cardan not dead. I mean, you knew that was how that was gonna go. I don't care if people think that was cheap. I don't care if people think that was too easy. I didn't want him dead, and he wasn't dead. That made me happy. Also, Jude and Cardan just exude, like, I have coined this phrase, it is my phrase, I will trademark it, dumbass Slytherin energy. They are the dumbest Slytherins. Like they are the ones that made me realize that Slytherins can be cunning, but they're not always smart. You know what I mean? And I'm saying this as someone whose secondary house is Slytherin. I'm a Ravenclaw first, but also, I have Slytherin trait. The things they would do, the fact that, like, she just goes into the fairy court and is like, oh, no one's gonna recognize me. Of course Cardan's gonna recognize you. Oh my god. Like, the only reason Taryn got one over on Cardan is because he was drugged. If he had not been drugged, he would have known that that wasn't Jude. He would have known. And then the fact that Cardan is dumb enough to go into the camp of his enemy to rescue Jude. Like, what? It was dumb, and I loved it. Like, they just... They have no, like, concept of their own self-preservation when it comes to getting the things they want, and I was just like, wow. Wow. Like, you don't think that Slytherin's gonna be dumb, but they are so dumb. Also, like, I love that Jude is the one that knows that Grimson curses all of his objects. You would think with his earring turning into a spider, he would think maybe there's something up. And then Cardan just goes up straight up and breaks the crown in half. Like, he doesn't look at Grimson and go, how do I undo this? He just breaks it in half, which makes this cover make so much sense because we have Jude's blood, we have the crown that Cardan has broken, and we have Cardan as a snake because Cardan apparently turns into a giant serpent and starts poisoning the land, which was fantastic. I loved it. It was amazing. Like, it was such a disaster, and it forced Jude to confront things in herself. I really appreciated that. I also love the fact that, like, he's like, I love you, or you're the only person I love, and, like, if you want my heart, it's yours, and then just walks out so Jude has no time to respond. And let me tell you, look, like, it was so funny because it shows so much insecurity on Cardan's side because he doesn't think that Jude is going to tell him that she loves him, even though she literally has that realization as they are walking out. It's funny because, where is it? I literally, like, she has that, like, I am going to, you've loved him since before you were a prisoner of the undersea, you loved him when you agreed to marry him. Once this is over, I will find the bravery to tell him. And I made a note, and it says, this doesn't bode well. And then, like, 3 pages later, Cardan is a snake. Cardan is a snake, and cursed, and probably dead. It was such a good way for things to go. Also, I really liked the fact, hold on, where is it? It's somewhere around the 200s. I loved the fact that Cardan's, like, he asks her the question, like, how do we remove our armor? And she's like, is that a riddle? And she solves it on page 204. I think of his riddle. How do people like us take off our armor? One piece at a time. That was so, so good. Speaking of things I was happy about, I was right that Cardan was sneaking mortals from Baelkin's estate and sneaking them back to the mortal world. I was right. Yes. I was like, this doesn't, see, after having read The Wicked King, the idea of him sneaking mortals away so, like, they can kill them didn't make any sense whatsoever. It just didn't. And I was like, I bet. And, like, I love the fact that he risked that, knowing what Baelkin would do to him. Like, we as the audience know what Baelkin, I love that he risked that. Basically, this book just justified all of my feelings about Cardan not being as awful as he was. And this is how you subvert the bad boy, like, evil boy trope. This is how you do it. This is how you take that evil boy and say, oh yes, he is just misunderstood. Because in this case, I mean, he is kind of awful, but he also is misunderstood. And he's awful because he's misunderstood. And as soon as people start understanding him, he goes, you know, I'm a terrible person, I'm gonna change that. Let's talk about these letters that he sends her. I loved them. Okay, you can't get them if you don't have this Barnes & Noble version, but I love the fact that he's just basically like, would you please come be angry at me where I can see you being angry at me? Like, I miss you yelling at me. I loved that. It was amazing. So good. Also, the Terran Locke thing, I did not see her murdering her husband. I could have done without the whole she was pregnant thing, but, like, her murdering Locke kind of redeemed her a little bit in my eyes, and the fact that she was so thoroughly in Jude's camp also redeemed her a little bit in my eyes. I'm happy with that. I liked how that turned out. I went in fully being like, please, can Terran die? And I felt differently by the end. I was like, okay, she's not my favorite character, but I guess she doesn't deserve to die. I guess Jude's better off with her in her life. Fine. However, I am still frustrated that she's like, what was it? Hold on. I have it tabbed, y'all. She says that she just did what their dad told her to do, and I don't like that excuse. I don't think that is a good excuse, Terran. I think that is a terrible way to say, just say sorry, I screwed up, but I need your help. Like, whatever. Also, going back to the other one, it was interesting to see how Cardan was treated by his family and kind of ostracized, and how he was bullied by his family, and he in turn used that to bully Terran and Jude. And also, I was very interested in the fact that, like, he and Jude have a very similar upbringing where they're kind of on the outskirts of fairy. They're kind of like the pariahs. I appreciated the fact that there was that parallel between them, and I would love to have seen them dig into that a little bit more and kind of discover that a little bit more. If things look a little different, it's because they are a little different, because it's been like 3 hours later, and I had to charge my battery and do stuff before I could come back and finish filming this spoilery chat. So before my camera betrayed me, I think I was talking about Jude and Cardan having similar backstories and kind of having a place of understanding. And Jude kind of gets there in the book. I don't think we ever see Cardan acknowledge how similar their upbringings are. Like, in the fact that they're both kind of on the outskirts of fairy. Now, Jude definitely had a more loving upbringing than Cardan had. I love the fact that he is a little bit jealous of her because she has so many people who actually care about her, and then there's him completely on the outside with no one who cares about him. Like, Lady Asha can choke. You know what I mean? Most of the parents in this series, I'm just like, I'm done with you, bye. Let's go talk about Grimamog. Did you know that she was going to be important to the plot? Because I knew she was going to be important to the plot. Like, the minute that they said Grimamog was a redcap, I was like, oh, well, Madoc kind of needs a replacement, so there we go. We've got a redcap to take over the armies. I'm surprised it took as long for Jude to be like, oh, you should be Grand General, as it did. Also, Jude cannot give up to save her life at the beginning of this book. I think that is part of her arc, because she cannot give up to save her life in this book at the beginning when she's fighting Grimamog. And I was just like, child, some things aren't worth fighting for. They just aren't. They aren't worth dying for. But she still did it. She still managed to come out on top, and I really appreciated that she used her tricksy mortal nature to do that. I just love it when people use the fact that they are human against the Fae. It's so much fun. It is so much fun to watch humans pull one over on the Fae. It's great. So speaking of Jude, at the beginning of the book, I want to just point out something that, like, we spent all of the Wicked King with Jude going, I don't have any feelings for Cardan. I hate Cardan. He's the worst. I hate him. And then we open up the beginning of the book with her having come to some sort of agreement with herself. Come to the fact that, like, she said, I make an incredulous sound, but Balcon's words echo in my ears. I have heard that for mortals, the feeling of falling in love is very like the feeling of fear. Maybe he is more right than I want to believe. Especially when I consider my feelings for Cardan, since there was no good reason I should have had any feelings for him at all. So I really appreciate the fact that she has come to a place where she's like, you know what? I do have feelings for this guy, and it's awkward, and it's annoying, and, like, she thinks he's gonna screw her over. I loved that she's like, well, I have these feelings. And then that ties in to later in the confession where she's like saying here, she's like, there's no legitimate reason why I should like this douchebag. And then you go to the back, and then she has the whole page on page 291 where she's like, she's able to, like, chronicle the progress of where her feelings, like, she talks about the fact that, like, when she realized he was funny and clever, she started to like, realize that maybe she liked him, and that, let's see, and then she's remembering things like how he got them out during Dane's coronation, and then she's talking about the fact that, like, she thought that once he hated her, she would stop liking him, and it just the fact that she's able to, like, she says, I shouldn't have feelings for him, but then she's like, she's able to chronicle the progress of her feelings for this really stupid boy who, yes, I just love that, the progress that we see there, the fact that she's getting more in touch with her emotions, and, like, the entire first two books has been her, like, running from her emotions as much as she can. I loved it. I think I've already talked in this video about the confessions, but I just want to hit them again because, those were two of the best confessions of love that I've ever read. I was so happy with it. I was just blown away by, like, how ridiculously them that was. I also really appreciated the fact, like, I love that Cardan is, like, so insecure, and he tells it to her and then runs away, basically. And then, like, Jude actually has to stand there and be like, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to hide away from it, because she knows, like, he's gonna sense if she's trying to hide away from it, so she just sits there. The one thing I do wish that she had said would have been, like, I wish she had mentioned the fact that she could have, like, had him trapped forever as a snake. She didn't have to give up, and so she gave up everything to do what was right. And when she cuts off the snake's head, she does that not because, you know, it's gonna benefit her, it's because she loves him and she doesn't want him to suffer anymore. And, like, so I wish that had been brought up in that conversation that she has with him about how much she loves him. I wish she had said, you know what, I could have been queen of fairy forever. I could have had my throne secure. I could have had a giant-ass snake that would be able to smite my enemies or whatever. And she chose, instead, to do what was best for him because she loved him. And I appreciated that. I felt like that was a really wonderful arc in Jude's arc, is, like, realizing that having power is not worth being a terrible person. I feel like that's kind of her thing. Like, we see her doing whatever it takes to get power in the first two books. And then in this book, I think the journey is her being like, you know what? Maybe I need to be vulnerable sometime. Also, can we talk about the fact that the thing that saves Carden, that sets him free. And this is Carden who's like, you know you can't solve every problem with murder. I love the fact that killing him is what brings him back. There is a beautiful, poetic justice in that, and it made me laugh. Speaking of Jude doing anything for power, I love on page 81 where she's like, I am the queen of Elfhame. Even though I am queen in exile, I am still the queen. And that means Madoc isn't just trying to take Carden's throne, he's trying to take mine. I loved that. I love the fact that she's like, you know what, I might not actually be on this throne, but it is mine, and I'm not letting him take it away from me. I just appreciated that. That was such a Jude move for her to be just like, you know what? Nope, I'm gonna do this because I don't want to lose my throne. Also, Jude using magic when she's like, here, pack this giant wound, which obviously we suffered an artery, a vein, whichever one is the one that kills you. I can never remember, but she's obviously got something severed inside, then she's bleeding out, and she's like, just pack it with dirt, and it works. Like, the fact that it works, I would love to see, like, 10 years down the line, would being queen of Elfhame change her? Because she obviously uses magic when she heals herself, she uses magic when she heals the roach, so I'm like, okay, so this has allowed her to tap into a sort of magic in the land. So my question is, 10 years, so 10 years down the line, when Oak is old enough, I don't think they're gonna give up the throne for Oak. I honestly, I think she's gonna just not do that. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think in any way, shape, or form that is what is going to happen. I think that she and Carden are going to stay on the throne, in my mind. But here's my thing, like 10 years down the line, how much will having that, like, is that magic something that is going to change her and maybe make her a little bit less human? I am interested to see what that would, like, what's it gonna look like for Jude having this magic, because she kind of gets more powerful as she goes through the book. I don't know. Okay, so we're just basically hitting all of the high points. I loved Carden's freaking rescue. Like, perhaps you could just allow yourself to be rescued, Carden says, for once. Perhaps you could just give me what I want, she said. And oh, my comments, okay, you have to listen to my comments. Like, so he goes, perhaps, I was like, not likely. And then I was like, and then him giving her what she wants is also not likely. Slightly more likely, but still not likely. Like, they are so stubborn. But I love the fact that he is an idiot and comes to get her. And then when he put the cloak around her shoulders and was like, keep this on, like, he's trying so hard to protect her, and I love it. I love it. He's trying so much to be different. Speaking of which, I love the fact that when he confesses, he's like, you don't have, or maybe it's not when he confesses, but there's a point where he's like, basically, you don't have any reason to trust me, and I understand that, but I trust you. I liked the fact that he's not asking her to trust him. We're just gonna keep circling back to this fact that I like that Carden is like, okay, we're going to change everything because he's realized that Jude can be afraid and that Jude can be hurt. I think that makes such a difference in his behavior. He spent so long thinking that, like, she is untouchable despite the fact that she is human, and he's realizing that she too has weaknesses. I think that is such an interesting thing for them to both look at each other and think that, like, this person has no weaknesses, and then over the course of the series slowly realize that yes, in fact, they do have weaknesses. This is why I love enemies to lovers. This is why. That's why. Like, also, can we appreciate the fact that Carden is into terrifying women? Like, that's exactly why he is into Jude. That's it. He finds her terrifying, and I find that freaking hilarious. Oh, okay. And so from when he's trying to rescue her, we go to the sexiest line of the entire book, which is, I lost your cloak. That made me laugh. I was just like, well, that's a way to make an entrance. Her falling from the ceiling because the bomb thinks that she is an assassin, and then I knew Carden was gonna recognize her handwriting and not think it was her, but like, there's this dark person, and she's there still bleeding. It was great. But also, when he goes, you're a liar, he says, eyes glittering with fury, a dirty, moral liar, and mortal, it's not moral. I loved seeing, nope, there we go. I loved seeing him so angry that she was putting herself in danger. I feel like he's gonna spend a lot of time just being like, would you please stop doing these stupid things? I just feel like that's gonna be their relationship, which is gonna be Jude risking her life for stuff and Carden going, please, this is too much. Like, stop stressing me out. It's gonna be amazing. Apparently my favorite quote is on page 155. Let's see, what is that? 155. Oh, so yes, that is in fact the best, favorite quote in the entire book is when Vivi is like sitting there with Jude after she's woken up from passing out and falling and all of that. She goes, you've got to stop acting as though court politics is some kind of extreme sport and stop chasing the adrenaline high. Like, yes, Jude definitely acts like court politics are an extreme sport. That made me laugh. I loved it. Oh, it was so good. Just all of the stuff we got in this, I was so happy. I was happy with what we got from Cardan and Jude. I was happy with what we got from Jude and her sisters. It made me happy, all of the interpersonal relationships. I even liked the little bit that we got with Oriana, even though Oriana needs to give Jude more slack. I'm sorry. Oriana needs to chill. Like, I really was frustrated by the fact that, like, there was such a difference between how Oriana treated Taryn and treated Jude. I was just, like, in the first book, I felt like it was more, like, Jude's perception, maybe. But this book, I was like, no, Jude is right. Oriana likes her less. And I just didn't. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more closure with that. But that's okay. I really don't care about Oriana anyways. Also, another favorite moment is when Taryn sends for Jude to come to wherever Locke lives. I don't know. It's not important. No one cares. And he's like, I'm gonna go with you. And she's like, you should not. So she says, I open my mouth to explain all the reasons that he can't go. The problem is that as I look up into his gold-rimmed eyes and he blinks mock innocently down at me, I can't think of a single one that will actually stop him. And I was just like, Jude's getting a taste of her own medicine. He's like taking the stubbornness and he is making it happen. I love that he's like, you know what? You wouldn't give up, so I'm not going to give up. Of course, then he walks right into a trap and almost gets himself killed. Also, can we appreciate the fact that, like, every time Cardan's in danger, she's like, oh, and she tries to protect him, despite the fact that he is a fairy creature. I love that. Oh my goodness, when they were in his room and he thought that maybe she might be there to kill him, and then she's like, stay down! That was so funny. They make me so happy. They do. Okay, it's fine. Also, I want to talk about how, final point is I want to talk about how Cardan's growth tends to spur Jude to be more vulnerable herself. Like, I like the fact that every single time we see Jude let her guard down in this book, it is because Cardan has let his guard down first. And I think that probably actually starts in The Wicked King, when he sits and he says, listen, I was upset that you were in Undersea. It was the worst time of my life, which he doesn't anyways. And so he lets his guard down. He explains some things to her and then asks her to marry him. And so then she lets her guard down. And that doesn't work out for her very well in that book. But in this book, obviously we start out, he's automatically assumed that Jude is back for nefarious purposes and all of that. And he's like, oh, this is cool. That's fine. And then he realizes that she's afraid, which leads him to treat her differently. It leads him to be like, oh, okay, I got to make sure that everything between us is right before I can go forward with this relationship. And so we see every time he makes a gesture and tries to bridge the gap between them, that's what kind of spurs Jude to do the same. Him admitting that she is Queen of Elfheim leads to her letting her guard down with him. The fact that he is willing to give up the crown also leads to her being willing to give up the crown. Like, it puts her in the position where she's like, you know what? I may not be able to keep this crown, but I'm going to do the right thing. Like, I like how that has this back and forth mirroring nature. This book is so good, guys. It's so good, and I love it. I love this series. I love the things it explores, and I love what disasters these two dumbass Slytherins are. I just do. So those are most of my thoughts about The Queen of Nothing. There are probably more things that I would love to talk with you about, so make sure you hit up the comments if you have read this book. It just was such a great conclusion for me because it ended exactly how I like my books to end, which is with everyone happy. Oh, speaking of which, I completely forgot. Who else is having a hard time thinking about Cardan in a t-shirt? That just was not a picture in my mind that I could get my head around. It was really weird. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, if you are new here and you like videos about books and writing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That's it for now, my friends. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!